Hello and welcome to the Grassroots Coachcast, episode 8. I'm one of your co-hosts, Dave.
Well, I'm Ben. How's it going?
Today we're going to be talking about day 4 of level 1. Okay, so Ben, how did you find that final day? It was a little bit of a shorter day than the rest, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's half day. I think we started at 9:30. We were finished by 1. He kept saying throughout the morning, "I'll have you out of here by 1 o'clock latest." And it got to sort of 11:45. We were on the grass still doing building up some practices, and I thought we're never going to get out of here by 1 because he's not even giving us our feedback and signed the books off, etc. But to be fair, we did finish by 1, so it was a good day actually. I think probably because we all could see the finishing line in sight, and as enjoyable as it's been, I think everybody was kind of looking forward to getting their Sundays back because obviously it's your whole month's gone. From a Sunday perspective, but yeah, it was good. We kind of arrived, and I mean, he asked us to come up with and plan 6 sessions each, which I don't think anybody did that. To be fair, I think that's quite a bit of work, and I think I said to you, I went with 2, but it's hard enough work trying to plan 1 when you're going to work every day and trying to plan a training session, but. In the end, he didn't really pursue that. He just he gave us all a card each per table with a scenario, and he said, "Right, come up with a practice or a session." And I think ours was the premise was our team, as soon as they get the ball, they kick it away because they can't control the ball, they can't pass the ball. So we developed a session around that. So kind of the idea we had was, I think we started off with dribbling around cones using different feet. Then that went into, I think it was a 4v4. And it was, you had to take, I think, 4 touches before you could pass the ball. I.e., you can't just get the ball and boot it away. You've got to take 4 touches. And we kind of developed it from that. Then we introduced zones and like a safe zone. So if you've got a weaker player, they can go in the safe zone and not be tackled, so they could just take a bit more time on the ball. And it was good. So we had to kind of deliver that to the group, and we got everybody involved and did that. And then obviously he gave us some pointers. Well, why don't you try this? Why don't you do that? But he said, yeah, the concept's good. And the other group were doing a shooting session. It was all about shooting, and then he made us play. What was interesting, he made us play a game against each other. So we had our team, whose sole purpose was about not booting the ball away, and we're playing the other team, who was all about shooting. So of course, your natural instinct is to try and play a proper game against them and try and beat them. Well, that wasn't. But he kept stopping and saying, "Well, are you achieving the objective of your session?" And to start with, we weren't, because we were just playing a normal game trying to beat them. So, of course, they're just getting the ball and smashing shots in from all angles, and we're trying to, right, we're not having this. So, but the whole point was, we were like 5-0 down. He said, in the end, he was like, have you achieved the objective of your session? Well, yes, we have, because we actually passed the ball around really well, which was the whole point of it. So that was quite interesting. So, yeah, it was good. And that was kind of all we did really in the morning. We planned that, and then we went out and did it, and it took a bit of time. And he just spoke to us about, again, he just sort of did an overview of building up practices and all that sort of thing. Then he just gave us all individual feedback sheets with our own personal kind of feedback. On mine, I think it was the same comments on most of them, because obviously we'd all pass, so to speak. But on mine, he put, it wasn't the same on everybody's, but he put on mine, take your level 2 in the next 12 months. I think you're ready to do your level 2 in the next 12 months, which was good to hear. So yeah, I may do it at some point. I'm still thinking about that, but probably further down the line, I will do it if I carry on and go into older age groups and stuff. So, but yeah, it's good. Then he just kind of signed the book off. He didn't really review the book. He was kind of like, it's your personal guide. I'm not going to go through every page. He said, what will happen is if you do your level 2, you'll have to produce the book and show that it's signed and show that you've worked on it and filled it in, that kind of thing. So that was quite interesting. And then he just gave us, we had a bit of a Q&A session at the end, and a few of us asked about level 2, what that involves. And he said it's more of a journey. He said you do it over 4 months, over, I think, 10 sessions, he said. But obviously they come out to your club and assess you and watch you and work with you and stuff. So that was quite interesting. I don't think wouldn't say this has been intense, but obviously it's all condensed down. Well, for me, it has been, not so much for you, but for me, it's been condensed into that whole February, every Sunday. Whereas I think the level 2, it's over a longer period. There's a lot more planning involved and a lot more arranging of him going to your club to watch you do it. So yeah, and at the end we kind of said to him, what are you doing tomorrow? And he was like, I'm doing a level 2 tomorrow. Then I'm down here for a couple of days doing this, whatever he's doing, and I'm up to this place doing it. Do you ever get a day off? He said, yeah, I've got 2 days off in a couple of weeks, he said. So it sounds really full on for him. Obviously, it's his job. So that was quite interesting to hear that. So he's juggling all these different coaching courses, different levels, different places. So, yeah, it's pretty full on for him. But, yeah, so it's good. So we got it all, got the book signed off, which was great. And, yeah, pretty happy. I presume same for you today?
Yeah, same in that. So got the book signed off. So that was in theory good. We'd started off though, and again, mine was a little bit less condensed. We'd had a week off in between, so I'd started just before yourself, hadn't I? And was due to finish after anyway, but of course we got hit by the snow, and so we got delayed a week there. And because of that, we couldn't get the same instructor, so that was a little bit disappointing because you've been on a journey with this one instructor, and then just logistics, we ended up finishing it off that last half day with a guy who hasn't been on that journey with you or taking you on that journey as such. But your last day there sounds a bit more like the kind of days that we'd had previous, whereas this last one was a lot. Well, we didn't lay on any sessions at all, whereas all the previous days were really about, certainly the afternoons were all about us designing and implementing our own sessions, and then, seeing your own kind of design session in practice, with the other coaches, the other players, and then, you taking part in other people's as well. So this morning, I mean, we'd started off.
Did you go outside at all today or not?
We did, but it was just to observe. So I'll take you up to that point, and then I'll take you through the observation, because that was quite interesting actually. Just observing another game that just, unfortunately for them, they were just playing on the 3G pitch next door to the FA Centre at the time. So we'd given them forewarning that like 16 blokes are going to wander out and start observing your under-11s game, So, I mean, the day started off with us just going into just a reflection, so what have you learned on the course? What are the things you do differently? I think on our table, again, it's like the other sessions, very workshopy. So I'd said, for me, the arrival activities was a massive thing, and before that, quite honestly, even though I didn't really have these conscious thoughts, I guess I saw people arriving at different times as just a bit of an annoyance. I guess, subconsciously I was probably thinking, well, if our training starts at 10 o'clock, everyone's going to rock up at 5 to 10, be ready and then hit the pitch at 10 o'clock. And it just seldom works like that. And you kind of think, oh, well, that's just us, isn't it? Everyone else clearly does turn up on time, and you're ready to go with what you have planned. So that arrival activity for me was a massive thing. As we went round the tables, a lot of people just said about the planning, and you and I have talked about that as well, haven't we? Just that proactive planning, as opposed to bombing it from work and trying to think on the way to work, right, what could we work on today? Right, the last match we were pretty poor at finishing, so let's have a bit of shooting practice, something like that. So a lot of people had fed back that, and I think that probably the other one that cropped up was to encourage decision making from the players, as opposed to intervening really quickly. So when someone's doing something wrong on the pitch, we'll kind of let them learn, and we'd had these little conversations about that over the 3 days. And again, I think it's going to be one of those things that I have to just constantly remind myself about, because certainly my natural instinct is, if you see something wrong on the pitch, try and correct it, try and intervene and correct it.
Yeah.
Whereas actually, you want to encourage this decision making from your players, don't you? So knowing when to intervene, but actually probably just it's probably a bit later than when instinctively you want to do it.
Yeah.
So another thing we did after that was to look at different scenarios. So he had a couple of cards that he put down. We had 4 tables, and he put a couple of cards on each of the tables. And we had a big old flip chart piece of paper to write down our thoughts on this particular scenario. And so, again, this probably ran for... It went quickly. But you had, a few minutes discussion on each scenario. So there were 8 scenarios in total. So it's probably running for a good half an hour. But it never felt like it was dragging on. You were deep in discussion about this one thing, and they were kind of there were scenarios where there is no right answer. It's just to have a bit of discussion there. And we were on kind of the first table. And so I think our first scenario was, you're 2-1 up, and it's the last few minutes, and one of your players basically one of your weaker players hasn't had much game time, and you're about to bring them on. What do you do? So we had a bit of discussion about, what is, we know what the right answer is, but we tried to say, well, all right, what would we really do as well? And so I think everyone was being very, very studious and very correct. We should bring on that player. And again, what we should have said beforehand, a lot of us were coming from the perspective of being under 8s, under 9s, under 10s, that kind of age group. It's probably a different answer if you're doing under 17s or under 18s, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
And it was only later when we were discussing, we thought, well, actually, all of these, it depends on the age group as well.
Yeah, true.
But for that first one, we sort of said we would bring them on, but if we're honest, we'd probably put them in a safe place on the pitch.
Yeah.
And I was sort of telling the whole room about this, and they all, I wasn't trying to be a smart aleck or anything, but they all burst out laughing. And they were saying, well, what's a safe position? I was like, well, you're 2-1 up, probably up front somewhere. I also said, well, you might pair them up on the pitch with like one of your forgers ahead, one of your better players. You might do that. You might also give them a bit of a pep talk, you know, and just build their confidence up before. It's something I've done. I can't say it's been successful, but, you know, to say to a player, look, go out there, get me a goal, or, you know, try and make them feel good about themselves. But, you know, we all know the academic answer is, or not the academic answer. We all know the right answer at that age group is to just give them game time, get them on the pitch.
Yeah.
It's just very, very hard to completely separate yourself from the result. And even if you are this kind of Kane from Kung Fu kind of, you've got this Zen outlook on the world, the kids don't. The kids still want to win. So, you know, and so again, it's a great question or it's a great scenario rather, because it just gets you discussing what you should do there.
Yeah.
And I think one of the other ones was, you know, one of your players late into the game, and I think it was I think it might have been a cup final or something like that. One of your players takes a dive to win a penalty. What do you do? And again, it was one of those like, all right, we all know what we kind of should do, but let's face it. Let's be honest with ourselves. What would we really do?
What did the tutor say to that?
Well, so again, we were talking about the age group, and the tutor, you know, he absolutely agreed with that, and he was talking about he coaches at non-league level.
Right.
And I can't remember the player's name, but he was saying he's got this bloke who he used to play for Luton. You know, this striker is about 38. You know, and this tutor who'd taken over, he seemed like a young bloke. He was dead ringer for Otamendi. And but you know, he said if he takes a dive and I have a word with him after a game, he's going to tell me to go forth and multiply, essentially. He didn't use exactly that terminology, but, you know, he's saying, what am I going to tell this ex-pro, you know, about diving to win a penalty in the last minute, you know? So he was completely agreeing that it's age appropriate, you know, and as you get to the professional game, you don't practice it, you don't promote it within your team, but you're not necessarily going to pull someone up for it. But someone had an interesting point. They were saying, well, you don't really want to undermine the ref as well. You know, if you can see it's a blatant dive, ref sees it as a penalty and gives the penalty, you don't want to make him look a bit of a chump and say, no, ref, you completely misjudged that and don't give a penalty. So someone said, well, just get the kid to kick it back to the goalkeeper.
Yeah.
And again, I thought, you know, again, at that, let's say under 11, under 10, under 9, at that level, I say, yeah, I think that'd be the right thing to do.
Yeah, I think so. I don't think.
What would you do? Honestly.
God. Being honest, I don't think I would. I wouldn't tell the ref he got it wrong. I'd let it go.
Yeah,
I just would. I know I can't. I'm not going to sit here and say different because I know I wouldn't. It would be a lie.
Yeah, and that's what I was trying to do as well. Is to try and say, look, we all know what the right answer is and what we're supposed to do, but let's have a grown up conversation. What would we actually do?
Exactly.
You know, and so
it's you can't really get on the moral high ground about it because he just wouldn't do it. It just wouldn't happen. I just know it wouldn't. It's like when you watch footballers and the ball goes out for a throw and they claim for a throw and they know it's not theirs. It's just
that's extreme, though, isn't it? I mean, I don't know when that came into the game, but when I started watching football, it wasn't like that. When if I boot the ball out and then I claim for the throw, I don't know when it came into the pros game, but I just find it ridiculous.
We went to Sutton today, and you can see, because we're quite close to the pitch, you can see like it comes off a defender, and it's also. But you see the other team, it's our throw, and you think it's not. You all know it isn't. So why are you even putting your arm up trying to claim for it? It's madness. It is cheating, but it's kind of acceptable, and you don't get pulled up at it. Except it happens every 2 seconds, but one of those, isn't it?
I mean, if two players go for the ball, and it's very hard to see, then yeah, appeal for it. But it's just weird how a lot of the time it's just so blatantly not your throwing, but you'll still try and get it. I don't know. I don't know when that came in. The last scenario, like, I'm not going to go through all 8. I'll just talk about the third one that I wrote down in my notes here. That one was that a parent was shouting at a player, their own child, and their child was visibly upset by this feedback. I think it. Yeah, so they'd made a mistake, and then the parent was shouting at them, and then they were upset by it.
I think we had a similar one to that as well, I think.
I'm sure we discussed this, didn't we?
Yeah, I think so.
But I don't actually remember what you said. Well, I think we discussed it, but I don't think we went too deeply into it.
No, we didn't. We mentioned it.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'll tell you what we'd said, but I mean, what would you, again, this is a classroom environment, so let's talk about what you think you would do.
I've kind of had that before a little bit when I was last season. I would probably take him off, have a word with him, tell him he's doing well. Don't worry about what his dad's saying. The only person that kind of matters on the pitch is what I think, and I think you're doing a good job. The only person you should be listening to on the pitch is me, and try and do that really. Kid glove approach. That's what I did kind of the last time it happened. It kind of seemed to work, but obviously every child's different, and it depends on the kind of relationship with the dad and how often the dad's like that, I suppose. But that's kind of what I would do personally. I don't think you could leave him on. I don't know. Depends on why the child, really, I suppose, and if you think they can run that off and not let it affect them. But yeah, I don't know. It's a difficult one. What did you say?
Yeah, so we debated a little bit about taking them off, and again, without. This is a hypothetical situation, isn't it? So without knowing the kid in question, without knowing, exactly how upset are they, you don't know, because we were saying, well, if you take them off, does that look like a negative thing? They've made a mistake, so that's why they're coming off.
Yeah.
But I think we were leaning towards, look, bring them off, have a word, reinforce that, mistakes are just part of the game.
Yeah, exactly.
Be brave on the ball. It's no big issue. Try and build their confidence up. But I think we all felt pretty strongly that you need to be having a word with the parent as well. And maybe not.
Absolutely.
Maybe not a 1-to-1. But again, it kind of depends on that parent, I guess. But, involving the parents in just making sure they know what your core values are.
Yeah.
So, this isn't you're not on the sidelines shouting at a bunch of Premiership players. this is about kids enjoying the game. You know, we want them to be brave on the ball. We want them to make mistakes and, you know, learn from those mistakes.
Yeah.
And you know, just involving the parents in that process helps them align to what your kind of core values are. So that's where we kind of landed.
It does. I think the problem comes when you've got parents who almost can't help themselves, you know, and they're always going to be that shouty, overbearing kind of person, even if you have that conversation. Because this situation I had, I did actually speak to the parent afterwards, like one-to-one, and I said, you can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
You can't have him walking off, you know, giving you the finger and storming off.
Oh yeah, that's right. I remember now.
You know, it's kind of, that's what happened. You know, he gave his dad the finger and he stormed off crying. And I said, you know, I can't have that when we're training. You know, it's madness. And he's like, oh, yeah, I know, but I said, but it's just not, you know, if it hasn't happened again, but still got the issue of, you know, a lot of shouting, and at times it gets a bit carried away, and it gets, you know, stuff gets said to the referee as well. If it's, and it's kind of like, well, you know, I don't want that. If it carries on, I mean, I've never said it yet, but if it carries on, I'll get to the point that, like, I don't want this sort of child carrying on in my team, which isn't fair on him, but I can't be constantly worrying about us getting complained about as a club and a team because of parents being like that. So it is a really difficult one, and I've kind of got that situation a little bit with parents. Only one, I would say. But you know, I've tried the speaking to him personally approach to see if that kind of works. But yeah, we'll have to see. It's difficult. It is really difficult. I'm sure I'm not the only one who has to try and come up with a way of dealing with that situation. But yeah, I don't know.
Well, I think although the problem areas are probably, you know, it's not one. It's not every parent, is it? Who's, you know, bellowing abuse from the sidelines.
No.
But you probably want to approach the parents as a whole as well, rather than just having one-to-one conversations with the problem areas and treating the symptom. What the instructor was saying, I mean, he basically said, like, I don't want to choose his exact words, but he was basically saying, look, parents do my head in. Those are my words, not his. But
well, ours kind of came from a similar point of view. He gave some examples of parents.
Didn't look like Oscar Mendy, did he?
No,
it's not the same bloke.
But yeah, he'd had similar, you know, parents coaching, and no, don't do it. Stop. I'm the coach. I don't want to hear you coaching. That kind of being firm with them. And you know, I mean, our club said that at the start of the season. They said, before we even had a game, they sat all the new managers down. They said, from the very get-go, you've got to be firm with your parents. You've got to tell them how you're going to manage, how you're going to treat the players in terms of minutes on the pitch. You don't want any coaching from the sidelines. All those things were said to us. I probably could have been a bit firmer in that, in terms of having that conversation with the parents. But to be honest, they're generally pretty good, and I haven't really had any problems with them, apart from the occasional issue with this one parent. But yeah, it's definitely something that I think you need to do as a coach at this level, because I mean, Elijah's match today, one of the kids, his dad managed the team last year, and you could tell, because he was just coaching his kid all the way through the game. Do this, do that. No, you should be doing it. And you could tell it was like he just couldn't get that management coaching thing out of his system. Because even just watching his son not as a coach anymore, he was still coaching him. And we were sort of joking amongst ourselves, parents going, oh, you know, you can tell he used to be a manager. But it was kind of like undermining the coach, I suppose, because the coach is on one side of the pitch. This guy's on the other side of the pitch. And it's like, I was having a chat with a couple of dads, and I said, I don't like parents coaching. I do, I kind of, because it just confuses the kids because they're not hearing one voice, they're hearing multiple voices. And that's difficult and it can be confusing, I think, especially when they're under 8s, 9s, 10s, 11s even. So, yeah, it's constantly learning and revaluing how you should deal with that situation.
Yeah, and I think definitely this guy was saying, look, just involve the parents, and sounds like the same kind of book, the preacher book is where your club are coming from. Involve the parents. What the instructor was saying was get agreement from the parents, not just tell them this is how it is, but get agreement from them. This is how we're going to do it. We're going to have equal minutes on the pitch, or whatever your philosophy is, so that when you do have those problem events, let's say, you can always go back and say, look, we agreed this is not what we were going to do.
Yeah.
So you've at least got something to go back to there. So I thought that was an interesting way to approach it, and I think I'll definitely be trying to implement that as well.
Yeah, and I did that with my parents at the start of the season. From the very start, I said my approach will be that it is, I want them to have fun and it's development football, this, that, and the other. So they will have equal minutes on the pitch as much as I can. Obviously, there'll be one or two who play longer, just the way it is, because you can't calculate it all evenly. But I said I will change the team fairly so everybody gets the same amount of time on the pitch, and I said that from day one. So there's never been, I'm sure, I'm not naive enough to think, I'm sure parents probably go away from some games going, oh, how come he's played more minutes? Why hasn't my son played more? Mm-hmm. Nobody's ever said anything to me, but I'm sure it's a natural thing. Elijah got substituted twice today. He played half the game, scored 2 goals. They drew 2-2, and he took him off twice, and he was playing really well. But he took him, and I was thinking, what are you taking him off for? He's probably been one of the best players on the pitch, being biased, but he was, and it was kind of like, I'm sure parents go away from my games thinking that. Nobody's ever said anything to me, but it's, you can't please everybody, can you? You've got 10 kids. There's always going to be 1 or 2 who don't agree with the way you do stuff, but that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
They're not putting themselves on the parapet to do this, so you've got to go with what you think's right, and that's the way it is. At the end of the day, you're the coach. As long as, like you said, you've laid out your philosophy, your plan, the way you want to approach it, I don't think anybody can argue with that, to be honest.
Yeah. You've just reminded me, actually, the coach was having a bit of a joke. He was saying, when we were talking about the scenario to dive for a penalty, and like say he's an assistant manager at one of the non-league clubs around here, and he said, in the last minute, 3 points, brilliant, I've got a job for another week, happy days. And he was kind of joking, and I thought,
he wasn't.
I bet you're not really joking,
He's not. He meant it.
Yeah. I don't know. Is it as bad in the non-league game as it is at the top level? I'm not sure, but it made me chuckle.
Pretty feisty. There's a red card and probably about 8 yellows. It's quite interesting. There's a lot of people steaming off the bench when challenges were going in. It was really, it was quite interesting. It was like you could see there was not a lot of fairness going on in that game, I can tell you. Every time there was a challenge, all the players were like, ref, send him off. Bro.
Yeah.
Hilarious.
Absolutely. So yeah, that was a pretty good discussion, and like I say,
we're going to do problem parents, aren't we? Because I think that'll be a good podcast when we do.
Yeah, that. we'll have to focus on that one for a whole episode.
Yeah, there'll be a lot that we can get out of that, I think.
Yeah. So the next part of ours. So this is probably where you went out on the pitch. So we went out to watch and observe this other game. And this was on the 3G pitch where we'd been playing in our previous days. And like I say, they looked about under 11, I'd say. There was offsides, so so it was at least under 11. They didn't look much older than that. And the 4 different groups had different things to look at, So ours was about subs engagement,
right?
And then, quite honestly, I can't remember what the others were. But just coaching behaviour was one. Right. But it was different aspects of the coaching, and I think this was it was a friendly, so it wasn't a cup game or anything where you can imagine emotions would be running a bit higher. So we went out there, and I think I mentioned before, I just thought, crikey, I wonder how I'd feel if you had nearly 20 blokes just rock up to your game, because it's just not Wembley. For a little game on a 3G pitch, nearly 20 blokes rocking up, it makes a big difference. You've just doubled the attendance. Yeah. So, I'm trying to observe what the subs are doing, but actually I'm being quite self-conscious about myself, looking at what the subs are doing, and not looking like just a bit weird. So what was interesting, I guess, was for this particular game, there was on one side there was about 3 subs, and on the other there was about 5. And when we got there, the team that had 5 subs, they were just kind of amusing themselves. They had one ball between them, and they were just kicking it around and basically doing whatever they wanted. The coach was completely focused on the game, and so the subs were just doing it, whatever. And I thought, that doesn't look right. To completely ignore the subs, and after they'd had a bit of a kickabout, and I think they kicked the ball onto the pitch a couple of times. So in the end, I think they were told, pack it in, just sit down there and watch the game. So then they were just sort of sat down watching the game. But again, it just didn't quite look right. They just looked a bit bored. And I couldn't help but empathise with the coach, with, nearly 20 other blokes just watching what you're doing. And I thought, would I be different? I'm not sure. I mean, we all have we're in a coaching environment, and so we're all thinking like, this is what we aspire to be, and this is what we should be doing. And I was just thinking, would I do anything different there, or would I have the subs engaged a bit more? And actually, after asking that question, I think I do. There were a few things like so. On the positive side, I'd say when the guy was making subs, he'd like throw about 3 on at a time.
Yeah.
So he wasn't going all out for the result, but when the players were coming off, there was no kind of praise. There was no well done, good effort. None of that. It was just,
I always make sure I do.
Exactly. So that was one of the things I recognised. Well, actually, no, that's something I think could be improved upon. But also, before the kids went out on the pitch, there wasn't that much talking there either. There wasn't much instruction, and again, we didn't see the game, the sort of pre-match talk. So this could have all been sorted out before, but it just seemed very, very kind of passive, and off you go, lads, have a go, see what you can do. Yeah. The other guy, the guy with the 3 subs, I mean, I didn't see him have one conversation with a sub. He was just kind of, he must have said something, but, he might have said like, Ben, you're on. That was it. And, so again, it was an interesting exercise because, again, I felt bad, quite honestly, being critical of these guys who probably didn't know when they rocked up this morning they were going to be observed. as part of a coaching exercise for 20 enthusiastic coaches.
I'd have hated it.
Yeah, and that's what I was thinking as well. I was like, right, and I could see the coach looking over a few times, and
Poor guy.
Yeah. No, it's not good. But you pick a pitch right next to an FA centre, you're probably asking for a bit of trouble, aren't you?
Exactly.
But But yeah, so like I said, we came back and we just had a lot of discussion. But one of the things that so when we were talking about general behaviour, we were saying the parents were unbelievably quiet.
Right.
So there were no, even when someone has a shot or something, it's like, oh, and a few little claps, and everything was really, really quiet. And we were discussing it in the room, and we were saying, well, is it just because they're just a quiet group of parents? And I was saying, no, I'm not having it. I reckon those coaches have had that discussion. That's by design, because even, just statistically, you get a group of parents together, you're going to get a few who are a bit shouty, surely.
Yeah, of course you are.
So they were all really, really quiet. And I thought, well, it's either a massively improbable gathering of this group of parents, or, they have had their expectations set. And like I say, it was a friendly as well. So, not maybe if it was a cup final, they'd all be bellowing, but who knows?
That is odd. I wouldn't like that, I don't think. I quite like...
To do the observing or being observed? Or either?
Having the parents being so quiet.
Yeah, I must admit, I mean, it was bordering for me on the fact that they weren't that bothered. Yeah. And even though, the coach was saying, he could do without the parents being there, I was trying to rapidly think in my mind whether that would be a good thing for our team or not. And I think I'm with you. I like a bit of shouting, And
I do totally. I don't like it when the parents are quiet.
Yeah. So I mean, I would have to say, and again, the girls' team that I'm coaching, all the parents, anything I ever hear, it's all positive.
Yeah.
It's like, go on, Maddie, or, it's shouting. It's encouraging. It's not like, oh, what are you doing? Don't play it there. It's not anything like that. So I think to just have it, as if it's like a golf event or something like that, where everyone has to be quiet. It's not right. It's not football for me.
No, it's not. I agree. My parents are a bit more lively than that. So, yeah, but it's all good. It's all
good.
Negative, but you do hear the occasional thing. You think, oh no, don't say it like that.
Yeah.
Obviously, they haven't had the benefit of. I mean, it'd be interesting to see tomorrow, because tomorrow's my first game since finishing the course. If I take on board the match day aspects in terms of how I interact with the kids and how I act on the touchline, because I'm guilty of being a bit shouty at times and the whole subs thing. I totally relate to that substitution thing. You got your 3 subs and they're off. The ball's being booted on the pitch. I'm thinking more about that. I'm going to give them little things to do when they're off the pitch. So I'm going to try kind of tomorrow for the subs to observe the game. I'm going to give them little different aspects of the game to watch while they're off the pitch, and I'm going to get them to tell me what they think we could do better, what they should be doing when they go on, all that sort of thing, just to try and get them thinking and stop them running riot, behind me, just to see if that helps get them focused, thinking, okay, let's watch the game. So I'm going to say, I'm relying on you guys to give me some feedback, what you think, and see if that.
So
So.
What you've just said there is exactly what I was thinking. So let's say you've got, I don't know, central midfielder or something like that, and you actually explain to that particular player on the subs bench, right, when you come on, you're going to substitute for this person playing central midfield. I want you to see how the game's going, see what's working well, see where we could improve, and then I'm going to come back, in 5-10 minutes, and I'm going to speak to you, and you're going to tell me what's going well and where we can improve.
Yeah.
And I thought that probably that would help them have a focus on watching the game, because I've been guilty of just saying, girls, just watch the game, just see what's going on. And a flip-flop between actually get them doing a few, get them with practicing a bit, more touches on the ball, passing to each other and whatever on the sidelines. But then the other side of me wants them to watch the game and learn a bit about the game through watching it.
Yeah.
So I think I'll probably experiment with both of those things. I do like the idea of being very narrow in, what you're asking them to look for. So this player in this position, that's where you're going to go on. You tell me what you think is going well and what could go better there.
Yeah. Well, absolutely. So we'll see how that goes tomorrow. I'm not. Yeah. I've lost my goalkeeper at the moment, so we'll have to see how.
Oh, right, okay.
We're juggling a bit. Yeah, he's ill, so I'm gonna have to have a couple of lads taking turns in goal, which isn't ideal. But yeah, I'm going to try something a little bit like that and see if that kind of gets them totally focused. But we'll see.
Yeah. The other nugget that came out of today, I thought, and this may have been mentioned on the previous days, and it wasn't even part of the course. It was just in and around the discussion we were having about practicing, and then the theme for this last day was all about match day, and preparing for your match day, really.
Yeah, that was a theme of ours actually as well.
Yeah, and I think the thing that jumped out to me was he was talking about how your matches and your practices link together. And he said I'll use the example of pressing. So if we've been working on pressing, set some challenges on pressing in the game.
Yep.
And I thought, that's brilliant. Why didn't I think of that before? So if we've been working on passing, right, all of you, I want you to make, X number of passes in this game, because that's what we've been working on this week.
Yep.
So little challenge for yourself. I want you to do that in this game. See if you can do it. And then you just narrow the focus of the players on what it is they're working on. Yep. And, you can't just work on everything, in that 1 week. But if you are focused and structured in the way you're building up your sessions and whatever, I thought that's a great way, and that's something I hadn't been doing, quite honestly. Was setting the challenges on the game day, and relating that back to what you've worked on in the previous training session. I thought that was brilliant. Definitely going to be doing a bit more of that.
No, absolutely. That's kind of, that's been a key learning for me as well, really. So we'll see how that. Yeah, so tomorrow's kind of the first chance to do that, really. Just trying to think what we did on Thursday to try. To remember to apply it.
In possession, out of possession.
It was mainly. Oh God, it's been such a busy day. What were we doing? We were doing a lot of, it was possession stuff. Just again, that final ball. So we had them zoned off, outnumbered in certain zones. So you had a 2v1 in midfield or a 2v1 up front. So it's 5v5, but one team had two strikers against one defender, and one team had one striker against two defenders, etc. So it was kind of just mixing the zones up So you're outnumbered in certain zones, but not in others, and just trying to get them to use the ball. It was kind of mildly successful, but there's a few learnings to take from it. But yeah, a lot of the stuff I'm doing at the moment is about using the ball better, because just decision making really, but trying to encourage the kids to think themselves and not me have to tell them all the time what you should be doing. But just I'll create a little scenario, so I'll position certain defenders and say, okay, if he stood side on to you, if his defender's at a 90-degree angle to you, side on, should you attack the box? Should you pass it square? And I'll ask them, so what would you do? Well, I'll attack the box because he's side by side with me. He's not in front of me. Exactly. Got a defender in front of you. You got a guy side on who's a teammate you could pass to. What should you do? Well, I should pass it because the guy's right in front of me. I might not beat him. So it's just so we do a lot of that sort of stuff. Just trying to use the ball better. So we'll see tomorrow and we'll go through that before the game. So, let's just remember what we worked on. Don't, make the right decision with the ball. And I think that's probably one of the most difficult things at that age to do, because you can see them caught between, I want to beat my man, beat him again. And all the time defenders are getting back, that breakaway that you had is gone. So that's kind of what we've been doing. So we'll see, tomorrow if that carries through when we go through it before the game. So, but yeah.
And how would you, what challenges could you set for that? I mean, and I'll give you a bit of thinking time by talking a bit while you think about the answer. But
very good of you.
So one of the things that just as the coach is almost kind of introducing himself and getting us warmed up, I guess, in the morning session, he was saying that so the non-league players that he works with, he said some of them, are as technically as good as the pros.
Yep.
But the big difference is the decision making. Because you're really into diminishing returns when you get to that level, and just high level non-league and professional. He said some of the players he's working with are technically better than some of the pros, but the pros just make better decisions.
Yeah.
And so, but I personally find it a bit nebulous to say, well, how do you really measure that in a game? And set that as a challenge for the player, because something like number of passes, number of tackles, something like that. It's really, really objective, isn't it? You can count them up. One tackle, right? Tick.
Yeah.
The right decision, and again, you can't, because certainly you couldn't do it necessarily even as a coach, because you've got a completely different perspective on the sideline. You're not seeing the same set of pictures that the player's seeing right in the middle of the pitch. So I don't know if I'm setting you up. Maybe you need a week. Maybe we need to discuss this one next week. How you can say whether at the end of the day you've been successful. I guess the true test would be if you've banged in 5 goals or something, and made the right calls each time.
I mean, you kind of measure it. I don't know. It's difficult. You kind of just, I try not to get too deep and technical into it, but it's kind of, I don't know. I can't really answer it, to be honest. It's kind of game by game. It depends on the scenario, really. It depends if it's 0-0, your players are so keen to score that they're just taking that extra touch. They're taking on an extra man. They feel the need to do it themselves. They stop doing the basics. I don't know. You can't. It's not something you can quantify, is it? It's just something that you can kind of try and replay to them and recreate those scenarios and just think, okay, if this scenario happened again, what would you do? Which is kind of what I do. I'll try and recreate things that might have happened in a game and say, right, at this point you had these guys here, then you did this. What if you had that situation again? What would you do? And I don't. There isn't necessarily a right answer, because they could say to me, well, I've got two defenders in front of me, but I could slalom through both of them, which they could.
Mm-hmm.
What's to say they can't do that? My thing would be, the law of averages says you probably won't go through those two players. So if you've got a player side onto you who's unmarked, give him the ball, then make you run beyond those defenders and try and get the ball back. But yeah, who knows? I don't think there is a right answer. I just think it's kind of trying to make them see the game from the point of view of I wouldn't say the less risky option, but the more sensible option, if that makes sense. I don't know. Mm-hmm. It's a difficult one, and it's only now done the course that you start thinking about these things in a bit more detail. But
yeah, so maybe let's touch on that one again, because it's a genuine question that I don't know the answer to. And as you were talking then, I was thinking, well, actually, someone like a Suarez, probably, if you had some objective scoring system where you rewarded the safe option each time, and it's a 1 or a 0. So they choose the safe option. It's 1. The risky one where you're going to lose the ball, well, that's 0. Someone like a Suarez would score pretty poorly, wouldn't he?
Yeah.
But, would do, he's an amazing footballer. So
this is what I'm saying. It's like, it's overwhelming me sitting there and saying to them, you shouldn't be. And I do say I don't want you to not beat people, because that's the exciting part of the game. And, a lot of you can do that. And I don't want to knock that out of you. But also there's times where we've got two people in the box, one defender or no defender, and we haven't crossed the ball in. We've tried to beat another man and lost the ball. And it's just trying to sort of think about that. And not wanting to knock that creative streak out. And I said to you before about the coach said
James Milner
example. Bless him. And I know what he was saying, because I've been guilty of sort of pass. But I do always say, I don't want you to not beat your man, because I've seen that a lot of the team are good enough to do it. And why shouldn't you do that? But also, you're not going to win a game, or you're not going to develop as a footballer if you're ignoring your teammate who's better positioned. I think that's especially watching Elijah at his academy training, the way they use the ball is a lot better than the way we probably use the ball. Although, that sounds harsh, because I think probably a bit unfair, because the way when we play well, we're really good to watch. We play a lot of nice football, which is great, because that's what I want us to do. But yeah, you just see the decision making from those players is so good, and I think that's just where they've had that extra. They've got that little bit extra ability. They've had really good coaching, and that's that kind of highlights to me where I want to get to as a coach, and to try and bring that out of the players, just that decision making. And it's just trying to come up with practices that encourage that, I suppose, that get them to think about how they're using the ball, which is kind of what a lot of my sessions at the moment are trying to be built on, being in possession. How should we use the football? And, I think we've got a good team and they're developing really well, but it's just, when you think about it, there's so many extra layers they've got to improve on to get to where I see other players of their age who look so good in those academy setups. It's kind of it's quite amazing to watch how effortlessly they use the ball. Just, split second, bang, 2-3 passes, goal. It's like that fast, because they just got this almost instinctive reaction and knowledge of what to do with the ball. It's quite amazing to watch, actually. And it's just, sometimes when I watch us play, it's almost like a bit too slow in that thinking. It's a bit too ponderous. It's getting caught between that. Should I beat him? Should I pass? Should I dribble? So it's just trying to get them to think about that, really. Yeah.
Well, let's maybe keep coming back to the decision making, because I kind of want to see how that evolves. And hopefully it'll help other people as we kind of fumble around and learn.
Yeah.
It'll help other people as well kind of rationalize their own thoughts on it. And feel free to get back to us. And if you've got all the answers on that or opinions, that'd be great. So I think just reflecting back on the whole course, I mean, I should say, so the day finished off then, the coach kind of went round, checked all the books, you'd filled in all the various tasks and whatever and signed it off. So I'm sporting a nice little signed book now. I think so what happens after that? Because you're a couple of weeks ahead of me. So you get your signed book and assuming you've done the e-learning. So what happens then?
So you go at some point, if you check back on the website, you'll see that the face-to-face session is signed off and complete. That blue bar next to all your that blue bar is then all the way across, so it's done, and you get a little tick. I don't know. I emailed the sort of coordinator of mine because I didn't know what had to happen. I just said, what happens next, blah blah blah, and she said, if you just go on now, you'll see it's all completed. So I presume the tutor tells whoever coordinated your course, they're finished, done. And then she just, this girl, Chloe, was doing it. She just fills something on the website and says, you've done it, I presume. So as soon as that's done, you can go and apply for your license, which I got the link from my club. My club sent me that link, but I can send you the link. I don't know how. I presume your club must know about it.
Quite possibly. So you go on the course and then you apply to be a level 1 coach.
Yeah. So let me just. I'll just ping it. I'm just bringing it up as we speak. I just got a link sent by the club. It's the FA Licensed Coaches Club.
Mm-hmm.
So you go on. I think it's on the fa.com. Yeah. Yeah, there's there's a website you go on and you basically put your fan number in and you register, and then it will automatically say on there's a link to the FA site, and it will just automatically tick that you've done your first aid, you've done your child safeguarding, and you've done your level 1. And then you just fill in a few details, and then it basically registers you as a licensed coach. Then you just have to send like a passport photo in, and then they'll send you an actual physical license.
Oh, right, okay.
So you actually get like a ID card saying you're a level 1 coach, but as long as you register before you do the photo, then that's fine, and you're licensed. So all good. So I just sent that to my club and just said, here's, I've signed up, I'm a licensed coach. Then they said you don't have to do the photo immediately, you can do that whenever, just so you get a copy of it. So ask your club about it. They should know. I'll send you the link anyway.
I guess there's a bit more paperwork, isn't there? To actually get through to the actual finish line. But I mean that just really is admin, isn't it? Reflecting back on the course, I think. And I possibly mentioned this in the last episode, it absolutely exceeded my expectations.
Yeah.
I think I was being a little bit of a smart aleck. On the first day of the course, the tutor asked, what are you looking to get out of the course? And, being a smart aleck, I just said, certificate. I sort of, I was genuinely joking. I was looking for that structured approach, but what I got was so much more than that.
Yeah.
And, if I was expecting 10%, I got like 100%. So, for me, if anyone's kind of on the fence, I would definitely say go ahead and do it, because it's not just about, if you, there will be a lot of people who just go on it because they have to.
We had a couple. who are doing it at university, and they said, "Oh, we've got to do this as part of my uni course." They may not even want to coach, but they were there because they had to do it.
I so chose the wrong degree. I did physics, for God's sake,
Yeah,
I've got to play football, for my university course. God's sake.
But yeah, no, I totally agree. It's I'm so glad I did it, and I'll be honest, I was one of those who went into it thinking, "Oh God, I don't really want to. I'm not that interested in doing it." If I'd been completely honest, but now I've done it, I'm so pleased I have, because it's really important. It really is important. I can't emphasize that enough, really. So it's been a great experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so anything else on that last day?
Not really.
I think that there is one more thing. Again, just probably it wasn't part of the course. It was just part of that whole discussion. And it was about choosing your words carefully. And right back at episode 1, you and I were talking about, about that very thing, about just a little piece of advice can have a massive impact. And for me personally, it was getting that advice around passing it. As soon as you get the ball, pass it.
Yeah.
And that's lived with me for 40 years or so. The instructor was pretty much saying that. And he was saying, he's been in the bar after a game, and the manager's kind of getting on to a striker about, striker's not scored for 6 or 7 games or something. And he's saying to him, you're going to get me a goal at some point, and just, he said he's trying to have a bit of banter there, but it's clearly not banter. He's clearly having a bit of a go, and he's saying the player goes away and he doesn't think it's banter. He's like, I really do. The pressure's on. I do need to get it there. So, he was saying just choose your words very carefully. And those few words can have a big impact. And when he said it, I just thought, oh, that's interesting. We were talking about that, probably a couple of months ago now.
Yeah. That is interesting, actually. Yeah. I haven't really thought about that, to be honest. We didn't, I know what you mean. Especially, I guess younger kids. Would you have that discussion with under 10s, 11s? I don't know, probably not. But
you wouldn't have the striker discussion, would you, about
scoring
goals?
I don't think they pick up on that anyway, to be honest. I don't know. Maybe they would. It's an interesting one, though. But yeah, I think when you're older, you can tell that that's gone beyond playful. There's a little bit of probably irritation in there. Come on, mate, you got to score me a couple of goals here. That's.
Oh, in that example, yeah. But I still think, whatever the age group is, I still think it used well, a small number of words can have a massive impact.
Yep. Absolutely.
Bringing it back to the old butt sandwich again.
That very phrase. Yeah. Absolutely. And that's always been something I've always been conscious of since I've been doing this, is that, always make them, at the end of the day, no matter how irate you might get on the touchline during a game and this, that, and we all want to win the game and stuff. At the end of the day, they're kids, and I want them to come off, even if we lose, I'll put a positive spin on it. It doesn't matter, you've done really well. Just make them feel valued. And I think that's really, really important. Really important. Probably the most important thing, to be honest. I mean, as nice as it is to win the games, it's interesting because we're having I think we might be having a meeting on Monday at our club about next season and about which players we want to keep and that kind of thing. And so there could be a bit of, I don't know, be an interesting discussion, because I've not really thought about letting players go. But that does happen at clubs, and even at our club that happens, because our under 10s guy was saying got a lot of trialists already at the club who've been trialling with him, and he said, loads of them are good enough to probably take the place of players that have already playing for us. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting discussion about who do you want to keep, and it's kind of sort of surprised me how cutthroat it is even at that age. But I guess if you're at a club, that's what happens, isn't it? Whether it's Man United or Macclesfield or even through that youth system, you're still trying to get the best players. So you are going to have to make decisions like that. And yeah, that's going on to another. That's going off on a tangent, but yeah, it's kind of loosely relates to those conversations and how people feel. And yeah, so I don't know. That's a debate for another day. But
yeah, absolutely. Okay, so if we're done with the course, then so let's wrap up there.
So you've been listening to the Grassroots Coachcast. You can get us on Twitter at GRootsCoachcast and also contact us at Gmail at grassrootscoachcast@gmail.com. And if you'd like to get in touch and give us a 5-star review, we'd really appreciate that, and give us a goal episode. I've been Ben. Hope you've enjoyed the show. Thanks for listening.
And I've been Dave. Thanks a lot, guys. Bye now.